Hello everyone to the Graduation with Leadership Distinction Alumni Panel hosted by SEAL, the Center for Integrated Experiential Learning. My name is Sarah Matthews, and I'm an advisor for Graduation with Leadership Distinction.
Hi, everybody. My name is Akila Allone, and I am also an advisor in the SEAL office for GLD, and I'm also a GLD alumni in research.
Great. We're super excited to have you here, Akila. So tonight you'll hear directly from alumni who have gone through the GLD process about what it was like, what they learned, and what they found the value was in it. We get questions like that a lot. And there's nobody better to kind of attest to what the experience is like than alumni. We do have a diverse audience here with us from first years to seniors. So we may also have a couple of staff members joining us. So with that being the case, I'd like to just give a brief overview of what GLD is. Y'all can see my slides, right? Fantastic, thank you. All right, so just to give an overview, GLD is an official academic distinction that you can earn upon graduation that acknowledges both your within and beyond the classroom learning. It's recognized on your official transcript and diploma, as well as with cords to wear at graduation. It recognizes you for getting involved outside of your classes, doing well inside of your classes, then taking the time your senior year to reflect on those experiences, how they connect, and what leadership lessons you've learned as a result. There are 5 different pathways to earn GLD: community service, diversity and social advocacy, global learning, professional and civic engagement, and research. And I just want to go ahead and ask, if you don't already have your mic muted, go ahead and do that now. I'm picking up some feedback. Thank you. All right, so in terms of the pathways, you should really pick the pathway that aligns with your interests and passions. That'll help highlight your involvements during your time in college. You might already be meeting requirements in one or more of these pathways. Once you choose a pathway, the same 6 general requirements apply, and you work toward fulfilling the requirements over the course of your college career. So it's not anything you do like all at once your senior year or your last semester. Your experiences are tracked in an experience record and application on our website. The first requirement is a 3.0 GPA at the time of graduation. The second requirement is a core experience outside of your coursework that aligns with your pathway that requires a substantial commitment of time and effort. Enhancement experiences are the third requirement, and this actually causes a lot of confusion, so I'm really excited for everybody here that I can clear that up for. They are simply other beyond the classroom experiences that have contributed to your understanding of topics related to the pathway you choose. It's really open-ended, and really we rely on you to tell us how these experiences relate to your GLD pathway. Some examples of enhancement experiences include workshops and guest lectures outside of class. The fourth requirement is the coursework requirement. You need to complete at least 6 credit hours, depending on your degree level, with a B or better from the approved course list, and that approved course list is available on our website and varies from pathway to pathway. The 5th and 6th requirements are typically done your senior year. Typically. There might be some variation on the public presentation, but that is typically done at an event called Discover USC in spring semester of your senior year, or fall showcase if you're a December grad. What you'll be presenting to fulfill the presentation requirement is one of your beyond the classroom experiences, and you'll reflect on what you learned from that experience. So that could be study abroad, an internship, research, community service. The final requirement is the e-portfolio. Like the presentation, that's typically done your last year. And it's a website actually that you'll create that allows you to highlight and articulate your experiences in learning in college through what we call integrative learning. So you'll write several essays, you'll do a deep dive on key lessons you learned from, your beyond the classroom experiences, key lessons you learned from within your classes. You'll analyze them, specify how they connect, what you believe to be important, how you've grown and changed during your time at Carolina, and then you'll also use those lessons to apply them to a problem related to your pathway. So you're demonstrating critical thinking, problem solving, and leadership throughout the entire process of creating the e-portfolio. Next. All right. So in terms of the next steps, you've already heard a little bit about GLD. You're going to hear more from our alum. Um, so the next steps that you would take would be to visit our website and watch the orientation video, start your GLD application, and make a GLD advising appointment. We've got 4 advisors that are more than happy to talk you through your interests and how to get plugged in to those types of opportunities. We also can talk to you about what you've been involved in and how they align with the GLD requirements and help you make a plan for fulfilling the presentation and e-portfolio requirements. So what I gave you today was a broad overview, and the QR code on the screen will take you to the appointment scheduling system. So the next thing is just our contact information. Um, you can contact me or Akila directly via email, or you can email our main account. You can also follow us on social media. So with that, I'll turn it over to Akila.
Thank you so much. And so again, everyone, my name is Akila Alum. I graduated from USC in 2018 with a Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Science and Leadership Distinction in Research. I also briefly pursued the Diversity and Social Advocacy pathway as well. And so I'd like to thank everyone for coming to our panel tonight, and especially for our alumni for agreeing to participate and share their wisdom with us. So we will start with introducing our panelists, and then we'll move into pre-selected questions that the audience has submitted. Feel free to ask questions as we go along, and we will answer them at the end of our panel. And so starting with Jenna, if you could please share your name, your graduation semester and year, your major, campus, GLD pathway, and what you're doing now.
Yes, my name is Jenna Wilson. I graduated in the spring of 2023. I graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Middle Level Education with a concentration in Math and Social Studies. And then my GLD was in Community Service. Currently, I am a 6th grade math teacher here in Columbia, and that is how I spend all of the hours of my day.
Sorry, I can jump in quickly and introduce myself too. Hi everyone, my name is Isha. I graduated in the spring of 2023, just like Jenna, so just this past May. I graduated with a bachelor's in science and biochemistry, and I also minored in history. And currently I'm applying to medical school and working as a research associate at the Mount Sinai Icahn School of Medicine in New York City. And for my GLD, my concentration was in research.
Great, thank you. So for our first question, Jenna and Isha, if you could tell us a bit about why you decided to pursue GLD.
I'll start with this one and then we can alternate. But I would say I had someone from the GLD, I guess the CL office, come and talk to an organization that I was in and kind of talk about how things that I was already doing could get this added like, I always like to joke, like, this added line on the bottom of my diploma that I like did something extra. And so I was like, I want to like look into what this looked like. And so I actually originally started doing the professional and civic engagement route. And then as I looked more and more into what GLD would actually become, I was like, wow, this is actually really a cool opportunity to reflect on a lot of things in college. And so I kind of shifted and moved into doing community service because I realized that really matched better with why I want to teach and what fulfilled me in what I did in college. And so I think that's what switched it up. But originally, if I'm honest, it was just because someone was like, you already have a lot of the requirements. Why not do the extra step? And so that's kind of how I got involved with it.
Yeah, so to continue off of what Jenna was saying, so I was a Magellan ambassador with the Office of Undergraduate Research my junior year. And so I actually like worked alongside the office with a lot of the awesome people at SEAL. And, you know, I was constantly reminded that like most students or a lot of students on campus, like I had a lot of the requirements for the GLD. So, you know, why not pursue it? But one thing that I really, you know, like enjoyed while pursuing the GLD and simultaneously applying to medical school. And I have friends who concur that, you know, pursuing the GLD was helpful while applying for med school or grad school or jobs, because it's a really great way to streamline and reflect on everything that you did in college. You know, I feel like similar to Jenna, I was doing a lot of different things at all times. So, you know, while I was pursuing my GLD, I used a lot of those, you know, experiences that I remembered about, added to my portfolio, and was able to add them to my medical school application as well. So it just allowed me for a time of deeper reflection on my 4 years at Carolina.
Thank you both for that. You both kind of touched on like realizing, oh, like I kind of already have everything done. Can you talk about like how you got involved in all the things that ultimately led you to earning GLD, and specifically the people, maybe advisors or mentors that were helpful in kind of helping you realize this is something you should do because a lot of the hard part is done?
Yeah, so I can start here if that's fine. But I think obviously being involved in Magellan Ambassadors, working alongside a lot of the SEAL staff members really gave me the opportunity to realize that, hey, like a lot of this hard work is already done. But also as a biochem major, there's a, you know, a huge, I feel like, research backing to the major that I'm already in. And so I took a class which was an independent study project, and I got to you know, utilize what I learned in that class to develop my honors thesis. And while I was working alongside that mentor, she also pointed out GLD for me. And she was like, hey, like, I see you're doing this really like hard science research, but you have such a community service focus towards it. Like, it's so multidisciplinary. You should consider, you know, pursuing your GLD as well, because I think that would allow you to highlight both facets of your time here at Carolina. And obviously, I chose to pursue the GLD on the research pathway, but I was still able to highlight kind of all of the different things that I did surrounding my main focus on research.
Yeah, and I would say similarly to that as well. I think my freshman year, especially, I think I just joined a lot of clubs and organizations in like a desire to like, you know, find people and meet people that kind of had similar hearts as I did as coming into college. And I think through getting really involved in those clubs or organizations, kind of random ones that you pick, sometimes those are the best ones that end up fulfilling you the most. And so I think especially as an education major, the College of Education at South Carolina is really small. And so the more I got invested in the College of Education, the closer I got with faculty and professors in that college. And then again, kind of like Isha was saying, they ended up encouraging me to do that and encouraging me to reflect. Like I always tell people, the College of Education, if anybody wants to know what it's like, it's do something and reflect on why you did it. And like, that's pretty much what GLD is too. And so I think they had a great, unique perspective to encourage me to do that, because they were like, if you can learn how to reflect through 4 years of college, you will be a better teacher because you'll learn how to reflect on each day that you teach, each month you teach, each year you teach. And so I think it was kind of that piece of the professors or mentors that I met along the way. They kind of pushed me to meet all the requirements in one.
And if I could add like one more thing, I think Jenna, you perfectly encapsulated this, but I think it's really easy to feel like if you're a certain major or you want to like be pre-med or pre-law or go into education that you have to do like a certain set of things to get there. But I just want to say that, you know, as a student at Carolina, you have the opportunity to pursue so many different activities, really go into activities and extracurricular clubs and take up leadership positions that you're truly passionate about, because I find that when you take up things that you're really passionate about is when you connect with those mentors who are able to support you. Don't feel afraid to like do the random things that may not be what a typical pre-law student or a typical pre-med student does, because I feel like when compiling my e-portfolio was when I was truly able to see how these pretty on the surface minuscule events that I did in college were really able to build me up and, you know, help my professional career now.
Thank you for that, Isha. I actually have a question to follow up on that, and it's something you both kind of mentioned, that you know you had interest in one pathway but ended up doing another, or someone encouraged you in a different direction. And I'm wondering if either of you could speak on what it's like to kind of have some boxes checked in multiple pathways, and why you chose to just do one instead of doing both, because we know as alumni how like arduous the GLD process can be. And I think it would be really helpful for folks to understand how much work it is, but how rewarding it is, and why you chose to just go with one in one direction.
Yeah, I think kind of like Isha was saying, I kind of like finding those things that you're passionate about or that you really like. I think that's what helped me narrow down between the two of professional and civic engagement and community service. I think at the end of the day, I knew personally with being most degrees, honestly, my very last semester in college, I was a full-time teacher as student teaching. And so I knew 2 GLDs I probably couldn't pull off. And so I needed to narrow down to one. And so I think, but for me, I can't remember exactly who gave me this advice, but it was great in helping me. But they were like, what do you think you could write and talk a lot about? And I like always jokingly was like, I don't think I could say Jenna Wilson and professional and civic engagement in the same phrase. Like, I just think that's too professional for me, like as a joke. But also like, I was like, I just know in having a presentation at Discovery USC, in having to write all these essays and reflections, what do I best connect with? And that was the aspect of college that I was involved in, community service. And so I knew at the end of the day, if an employer was like, what is this GLD? What does that mean? I knew I wanted to pick something that I really could like explain and really show like it really did have an impact on me throughout college. And that's what helped me narrow it down.
Yeah, so I was in between really between pursuing my GLD in research or in diversity and social advocacy. And when I was going through really thinking about which pathway I wanted to pursue, if I wanted to pursue both, similar to Jenna, I just did not have as much time as I thought I would to really think about pursuing both pathways, especially as I got to my senior year. I found that a lot of the beyond the classroom activities that I was considering for the diversity and social advocacy GLD pathway almost complemented the research that I was already doing. And I felt like I had a lot more tangible like coursework requirements already complete for the research pathway since I was a biochem major. So that's personally why I chose to pursue that pathway instead of the other one, just because I felt like the activities and key insights that I had for the social advocacy pathway could still complement the research pathway that I was choosing.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a lot about, you know, what do I have the most to say about, right? Particularly being students who are highly involved. And so one last question before I hand it over to Sarah. Can you talk about managing your GLD process and your portfolio process while being such an involved and engaged student at Carolina?
Yeah, I can start. So I was actually independent when pursuing my e-portfolio. One thing that really helped me was setting up appointments with people at SEAL whenever I had a question. Everyone in the office is just not only super friendly and approachable, but super helpful. They will give you, tangible goals to reach for when pursuing your e-portfolio. So definitely reach out to them. But also just having a group of friends who are also pursuing their GLD. I had two close friends of mine who were pursuing their GLD, so working alongside them, having a cool beans date, and like finishing one part of our portfolios together, kind of looking at them together was really it was really great to like have a peer group as well while pursuing this, because it is a really big portfolio to have at the end of the day. So just having friends along the way to pursue it alongside.
Yeah, and I guess differently, I took the University 401 class I actually took it during the fall of my senior year. So not my last semester in college, but the semester before that, just because again, with education and being full-time teaching during that last semester, we aren't allowed to take other coursework. But I knew in the procrastinator that I am, that I needed someone to guide me along the way and give me deadlines as we went through. And so in University 401, that my professor actually became one of my favorite professors I ever had in all of college, which was definitely a true delight in your senior year to have a new, like, fresh, I don't know, view on college, because it's just a long 4 years sometimes in school. But Dr. Wellman definitely helped me a lot in guiding me through when to do what. And just because she's taught the course before, she knew like, this is an important piece to do first, and this is an important piece to do second because of what you learn from doing this first. I also thought uniquely being in University 401, once you're like a junior or senior in college, you only have classes of people who have your major for the most part. And so it felt like being a freshman all over again. I was in a class of people who were all different majors. And it was so cool because freshman year, it's all these people with different majors, but everybody's kind of nervous and not knowing what's going on. And then you get to like fall of senior year with all these different majors, and you can hear and learn and reflect on what all these different people did all simultaneously while you were doing all the things that you were doing as well. And so it was so cool just to see collectively, I didn't necessarily do any cool bean dates, but our class kind of became a cool bean day of like, what did you do during these 4 years? Like, how did you invest yourself? What did you see in the things that you did? And so I think I really like GLD probably, or that class specifically was one of my favorite ones just to go to, because I just was like, I just get to hear and talk and share. And as I was sharing with them and they were sharing with me, more ideas came to my mind. And again, if you think that you're not good with deadlines, it would also probably be helpful to have someone helping guide you along the way, if I'm honest. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Jenna. Isha, do you have anything to add on how the structured advisement process, what that looked like for you, and kind of the milestones and timeline?
Yeah, so one thing that I really enjoyed about the structured advisement timeline was the fact that I was constantly given access to meet with the SEAL office, which was really nice. Any question that I had was really answered straight away. And I think one intimidating aspect of the GLD is, am I like pigeonholing myself when creating this portfolio? Like, am I over exaggerating something? Am I, downplaying another aspect of my college experience? And one thing that I really enjoyed about the structured advisement process is when I was able to meet with my advisor, I was given really great feedback, and it wasn't like no part of my application did I feel like I was kind of, thrown off the ship or anything. I was always given feedback, always encouraged, and it just felt like a really positive yet motivating experience. I will say that one of my friends did, do the U401 class, and I think if I could do it all over again, I would definitely maybe consider U401, just because I feel like the relationships that were built in the class, like Jenna said, seemed really, really amazing. But I will say that, if you don't have time in your schedule, like I personally did not have time in my schedule my senior year to take the U401 class, the structured advising was just as amazing, and really allowed me to, keep up with my own personal timeline and also get feedback that was really helpful to pursue my portfolio.
Thank you. So we heard earlier that there is a presentation that is a requirement of GLD. Can you tell us a little bit about the presentation process and what that was like for you and how you prepared for it?
So the way I would describe the presentation process is the least intimidating presentation you could ever give. I really do mean that. So you're kind of in a big room of all these different people talking about things they're really passionate about. And I think what's unique about GLD is they don't tell you, kind of like all of college, they don't tell you, or unlike all of college, they don't tell you what you're going to talk about. You get to decide and you get to pick what you are most passionate about what you are involved in college, and then just like brag about all these really cool things that you did. And so I think like the presentation part, judges come by and kind of talk to you and want to hear about what you do. If I'm completely honest, I didn't do a ton of like script preparing because I think one of the advice that I got from Dr. Weldman was pick something that you can just talk about just from talking about it, not even just like having to memorize a script. Find something that you genuinely are so passionate about that you could talk for 5 or 10 minutes to someone about without any prompting per se. And so I think that was kind of where I went with it. But I actually loved that day too, because similarly to U401, I was around all these other people who were presenting on these things, and I'd be like, what does your poster say? Like peeking in and like, what did you present on? And so it was cool just being in that environment and just, seeing what all the other people did.
So I will say, just like Jenna, I was really, really excited to present my work that I use towards my GLD in research. So when you pursue a GLD in research, you obviously have the option to, present your research project at Discover USC. So I found it really fulfilling to present on this research that I had worked 3 straight years on. And I also was, just like Jenna, super excited to walk around and see not only the other GLD portfolios, but also just other like basic science research posters as well. So don't be intimidated about it at all. I'm sure your U401 professor, peer mentor, and even like if you're pursuing the research pathway, your PIs, the principal investigator that you're working with, will help you prepare kind of a spiel for the day that you present your work towards your GLD. It's really conversational. The judges are super sweet and super engaging as well. And there will also be like students, like your peers, walking around that day. So invite your friends to come by, see your posters, see all of your hard work, because I think that makes the process even less intimidating.
Great, thank you. So my next question is kind of a two-parter with a follow-up. So what did you find were the most rewarding parts of pursuing G, and how would you describe the benefit of pursuing GLD and writing the e-portfolio? Isha, you're muted.
Sorry, I was speaking out loud. I'm actually currently scrolling through my e-portfolio as we're speaking. I would say the most rewarding part right now for me was definitely compiling all of my key insights. I feel like that's definitely the most daunting part at first, like finding these big general overhangs, but not only compiling my key insights, but seeing how some of the more like, I'm using quotation marks, but random things I did in college. Like my freshman year, I did mock trial, which I think is like a very like pre-law, like I have no desire to go to law school, you know, like it doesn't seem like something that someone who's pursuing medical school should be interested in. But I found that when compiling my key insights, I had a lot to say about just participating in mock trial my freshman year and how it helped me develop my public speaking skills, develop some great interview skills, learn to stand up for myself in college. So I was really able to like get deep, like a lot deeper than I thought I was when compiling some of my key insights. And like I kind of touched on at the beginning, I feel like one of the greatest benefits of you know, creating your e-portfolio, participating in the entire GLD processes when you're applying for jobs, applying for grad school, med school, law school. All of these applications really ask you to reflect on your time in college. I know I can personally speak for the med school application process. They ask you to really reflect on each and every single activity you did in college. And I already feel like I had a leg up come, you know, June, July, when I was filling out that application, because I was really easily able to go to my e-portfolio and reflect on not only what I was doing in each of these activities, but also how I was feeling, kind of like how my leadership experience impacted other people that I was working alongside. So really helpful when completing any application, internship applications as well. I think it's just a great toolkit that you'll have forever and ever when completing, you know, any of these applications post-college.
Yeah, and I think similarly, you've already said this and we both said it too, but it's just a great way to reflect holistically on everything you did, even the most, you know, like you were saying, random things, just how all of them really do play in the greater picture of what your time at the university looks like. I would say another thing for me, kind of like Isha said, it really did get kind of deep for me. Not maybe intentionally, but I remember being like, wow, like that's actually big. And I think, not to get deep in this moment either, but I think during student teaching especially, I kind of got in this place of, do I actually want to teach? Is this something I want to do for the rest of my life, if I'm real? It was definitely something that was just different from what I thought it was going to be, if I'm honest. But I had just completed this huge portfolio about what community service looked like for me and how community service is why I want to teach and what drew me there. And so in days where I was like, wait, why do I want to do this again? Like, what is drawing me here? I had like a resource to be like, no, Jenna, your whole life you've wanted to serve people. Please don't back out now. And so I think that's something super beneficial that ended up helping me just in like calming these like nervousness of being post-grad and what that would look like, and just helping me refuel that passion that I had to teach and to serve people, and what that would look like.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you for that. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to add, yeah, that's not the first time we've heard that, you know, by doing the e-portfolio, it might call some things into question, and cause some shifts, but it sounds like it kind of worked out in the inverse for you. That's great.
So, my next question for both of you. So we've talked a lot about what's the good side, the great side of GLD, right? And there's so many things, but we do know it can be challenging, right? And I'm wondering if you could talk a bit about what were some of the challenges, and how did you get through them?
This may seem minor to some people, but this was, it kind of sounds funny, but like this really was one of the most frustrating parts of GLD, was revision, and rereading what I had written and writing it again and editing it. And I just kind of was like, okay, I just have, this is it. This is all I got. This is all I have in me, during certain points for sure. At the semester I took that class, that was actually, I was taking 21 credit hours that semester, which was absurd. But it was so worth it, but it was just a lot. And so I think just having to like go back and reread a lot of that, because I'll be like, I wrote this and this is how I feel, and this should be good enough. And then I'd reread it and be like, no, this doesn't convey the right message. And so kind of having to consistently go back and look and say, what is the point I want to get across in this key insight? How do I want my introduction to look? How do I want the last section, what is it called? Anyway, the last section, kind of figuring out what I wanted them all to look like, how I wanted the message to get across. So that revision piece personally for me was the most difficult or frustrating part through the process.
I think for me, it was I was able to compile my key insights and get some feedback on them, revise them, which was great. But it was actually finding my artifacts that was a little bit tricky. I remember I spent like a whole 2 weeks, like I had my ideas down for what I wanted my artifacts to be, but then it was literally combing through my Google Drive, OneDrive, all of these like, drives that I had to find exactly what I was looking for. And then also making peace with myself sometimes at points and being like, I literally cannot find this artifact from freshman year. What can I do instead? And revising kind of my key insights then, which I thought were pretty finalized to fit the constructs of new artifacts. And also, again, may seem really minuscule, but designing my e-portfolio in and of itself, I used Wix and I had used it once before, and I guess I'd just forgotten that it wasn't that user-friendly at all. I mean, I really love how my e-portfolio turned out, but I think I am glad that I overestimated the time that I needed to complete it, because that was definitely one of the longest parts of the process for me, like forcing myself to sit down and stick everything together.
Also, if I might add in really quick too, I think anybody listening, I think in hearing what both of us said about the most challenging part, the challenging part isn't completing the requirements, because at the end of the day, hopefully those are things that you enjoy. At the end of the day, it's not things that are like these big, huge tasks. It's just the minor things of putting it all together. And I just want to encourage you that you can do those minor things. You can get through that. And I think that's like a hopeful thing to hear as well. But sorry, go back.
Yeah, we can keep going on that, because my next question for you is just what advice do you have to students that are interested or thinking about pursuing GLD?
I would really say one thing in general, not, pursue your GLD, because you definitely, by your senior year will realize like, hey, I have all of these requirements. But just a pro tip, maybe this is like for college in general, don't knock any opportunity until you try it. And you'll see, like, as you're pursuing your GLD, the things that you're most passionate about will really stand out to you and pop out to you. And when you're pursuing mentors, to help motivate you, either in pursuing the requirements for your GLD or finishing your GLD in general, I think you will find those great mentors, those great peers who will help you through pursuing activities that you're truly passionate in. But in order to find activities that you're really passionate about, you kind of have to try a little bit of everything. I think Jenna touched on this, but I was involved in a lot freshman year, and I noticed even by the end of my sophomore year, I was involved in, less activities, a smaller subset of things. And I think by my junior year, I'd really cemented that I wanted to pursue the GLD. And pursuing it seemed more attainable because I'd already noticed this trickle down between, my 2 underclassmen years in college.
Yeah, and I would say, I really think at the end of the day, like we're just kind of saying the same thing, but I think it just really, it's important for you to have like a closing chapter on college and really have like here's what I did and why I did it and how it's going to make me a better person, a better whatever your job might be. I think something that specifically like Dr. Wellman talked a lot about, and I think it's the SEAL office in general, but it's not like what you did, it's like how what you did impacted your learning, and how what you did is going to impact what you do in the future. And so I think that's a really cool, like, important life skill that you just need to know as you move into a career, as you move into applying to med school, whatever that may look like for you. But being able to, it's just an important skill to learn of like, how can I talk about what I've done without just listing out what I've done, but talk about how it's actually impacted the way I'm going to do things in the future.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. My advice is for those of us who are just such high achievers that we just don't know how to relax or rest. Because, and now, through my experience actually working for SEAL, like I was someone who really, really, really wanted to do 2 pathways. And I've, students come to me in the same vein. And the best advice I got was, there's a lot of work to do 2 pathways because you have to do 2 portfolios and you shouldn't do them at once. And that's really, as you were saying, Jenna, the brunt of the work is, or both of you, is putting together all the little details, right? The benefit of doing 2 pathways is not greater than the work that it takes to do 2 pathways, because like, it's not like it, the chords are the same. It doesn't ultimately make a big difference in, what your transcript, what your diploma says, but you are going to do a huge amount of work for such a little return, when at the end of the day, even if you don't have 2 distinctions, your leadership abilities and your professional development have already been shaped by all those experiences. And so that really changed things for me. And I was like, why am I trying to reinvent the wheel? Why am I trying to, work so hard on something when it doesn't, it's in the grand scheme of things, not as impactful as I really want it to be. But you both kind of talked a little bit about, reflection and how beneficial that was to think back. And I'm wondering if you could talk about how useful doing GLD and for you was in that reflection on where you are in your career now. I think you both kind of touched on it a bit, but like, how has it been useful in your career? And also, have you been involved in helping others, maybe students or your mentees, in experiential learning today?
I think 2 things on that. One, I have a sister who is a junior at South Carolina right now, and I have been, you have to do GLD, you have to do GLD, you have to do GLD. So I don't know how much advice I've actually given her other than just encouraging her to start the process, because I think that's what's unique about it is, as long as you start the process, you will get something fulfilling out of it, no matter what it looks like. So that's one thing. But then as far as my career, I've kind of touched on this, like you were saying, but in an interview setting, when a principal asked me, like, why do you want to teach? And specifically for me, like, I teach middle schoolers. Why do you want to teach middle school? Because why would you want to do that? Just questions like that. I think because I learned how to reflect and really talk about what I've done, and really remind myself why I want to teach, those questions weren't daunting to me. They weren't scary to me, because I'd already done all the front loading of like, here's all this prep work that I've done to know how to respond in these situations, to know how to talk about everything that's on a resume. I can talk about them in so much greater length because of all this reflection that I was able to do through the GLD process. And I think even more so, one thing that I've really found myself doing is really valuing teaching my little 6th graders who are 11, getting them to see how important both what they're doing in my math classroom is, but also like what they're doing outside of math that they bring into my math classroom every day. And so it's not that they quite understand, how outside of the classroom learning and inside of the classroom learning connects. But I am like able to plant those seeds for them that hopefully as they get throughout school that they can see even just the minor connections that they can make at middle and high school, so that as they do maybe pursue college or a career in the future, they can do the same things.
Yeah, so just like Jenna said, I feel like we kind of have been talking about this throughout the entire presentation, but the GLD is great for interview prep, for, speaking to people just about what you're doing day to day, at your job, in your grad program now. But I will say I'm currently conducting HIV research here, and I feel like just pursuing my GLD was such a monumental step for me to get a deeper look at really the reasons that I was pursuing everything that I did in college and understand the impact of each and every single activity that I did in college. And I feel like while I've been pursuing my HIV research, sure, day to day, like I'm in the lab, I'm doing the hard science, but I've really been able to reflect on the impact that HIV research and virology research in general has on people for lifetimes to come. So it's really great to kind of understand the social impact of science as a whole. And also, like Jenna, I also have a younger sister. She's not in college yet. She's in high school, but she started thinking about, the college application process. And so I feel like just my time working towards my GLD, I've been able to answer her questions and help her reflect more on her high school, process as a whole. So that's been really a really, great gift that I think GLD has given me, the ability to help other people reflect as well as myself.
Yeah, I think, all these benefits that we've talked about tonight, if you're thinking about GLD, it's really something you should consider strongly. Because I work in higher education, and I work with folks at institutions big and small all across the country, and they're always very impressed when I talk about GLD and all the things that I've learned. It's the opportunity to go through that process, not so much the distinction itself, but go through the process, truly is unique. It's not something that a lot of students can say they had the opportunity to do in undergrad. And also, like, we know that, like, the workforce is changing, and employers, they don't, like, a degree is not enough. They want to see that you have leadership, and they want to see, that you know how to manage your time and balance a busy schedule, right? But it's more than just that, because GLD shows not only do I know how to do these things, but here's what I can tell you about what I learned from them, and here's how I can apply them to other areas of my life. And so, yeah, there really isn't, I don't really know of many schools that have anything that comes anywhere close to the things that you gain from going through the GLD process. And it is that a process versus just a stamp or a seal at the end. But with that, we want to move into some questions in the chat if anyone has any questions for our panelists.
While we're thinking and typing, I do have one that we can pose. So, we mentioned that there was a coursework requirement. How did you meet that coursework requirement? Did the classes fit easily into your Carolina Core degree program?
So I had one course that was already embedded in my degree. And so that was like a cha-ching moment for me, because I was like, oh, that's good. But I did have to look into taking a second course to meet the requirement of the 6 credit hours. And by the time I really realized that, I did not have room in my schedule. And so I talked with an advisor through the SEAL office and kind of talked about what are some other classes that I took already in my coursework that, hey, Kennedy. So any coursework that, just lost a train of thought, sorry. Okay, anyway, sorry, I got it. Any way that, like, how other coursework that I had already taken, how it did impact the community service aspect of my like GLD process. And so I was able to kind of project or like what is the word I'm looking for? Like present, I guess, and see if a course was if y'all would accept it for that course, and then you ended up accepting it. So that was a cool process to see too. But it also kind of started the process earlier of me reflecting on, okay, what classes have I taken that did directly relate to community service? So it kind of already started that reflection piece before I ever really started. That was a really long roundabout answer, but hopefully someone understood what I just said.
So to kind of summarize, you realized that you didn't have time to take that second course, so you ended up proposing a course, and it was really you just justifying how that course related to community service to get it approved to meet the requirement.
Wow, thank you. You said it better than I did. Yes, everything that you that was great.
Great, thank you for that. How about you, Isha?
So for me, I was a biochemistry major and history minor, which are two like very different, like I think, like academic avenues to explore. And I remember, funny enough, sophomore year when I declared my history minor, my mom was like, why are you doing this? Like this seems like completely out of left field. Like, you're really into science. Why are you doing this at all? But I found that pursuing a minor that was really super different from my major in general and that I still enjoyed and was passionate about allowed me to check off even more boxes on my GLD application, made the process a lot easier because I was just able to, take a lot of vastly different courses. So that was really helpful. I remember my junior year, I asked an awesome SEAL staff member about if my independent study course that I was taking that semester could count towards my portfolio. And so I will say, I think almost every single major at Carolina, you have the opportunity to take an independent study course. So those are, great ways to kind of fulfill even more coursework requirements on your GLD application, and they can be added as well. So don't discredit those. It's a great way to learn more about a specific field as well and get closer to a professor. And I feel like based on what the staff member told me, most of them are accepted onto, as a coursework requirement for the application.
And I'll go ahead and answer the question in the chat since it was for me. But so Kennedy was asking how being a university ambassador helped me with the process. So yeah, being a university ambassador definitely helped me with my presentation skills and learning how to talk to people, which is very much what you do in the presentation aspect of it at the end of the year. I also used ambassadors as one of my entire key insights. So my entire key insight, my first key insight I wrote about was why I chose USC, and then also why I got to be a part of giving back to a community that was so much poured into me to welcome in other baby Gamecocks, which was definitely one of the most fulfilling service aspect of college that I had. And so I was able to definitely use UA as a good reflection piece. But not only that, Kennedy, so many people in UA do GLD, and like Isha was saying, having people that are doing the process at the same time as you, or even have done it years past, they can really help you guide and help. Even if you just word vomit everything you've ever done in college, they can help you put it together to help you put it into the portfolio. So that's what I would say.
And I can really quickly answer Sarah's question, which is basically sophomore year too early to start the process. I think anyone in SEAL, anyone that you ask that's completed, your GLD will tell you it's never too early to start. In fact, I think the earlier that you start thinking about the GLD process in general, the easier that compiling your portfolio at the end of the day becomes. If I could do it all over again, I definitely would start organizing my artifacts, which are kind of your pieces of classwork or outside activities that you've done, videos, anything that you've done to fulfill a key insight. I would have started organizing those my sophomore year, because I think that's when I really got into being involved with the activities that I was involved with until my senior year of college. So I think definitely don't stress on it at any point. SEAL is there to help you. If you find a great group of friends who are also pursuing their GLD, they're there there to help you as well. U401. So there are definitely avenues that you can go towards to ask for help. But I think the earlier that you start thinking about the entire process, organizing your Google Drive, organizing classwork, materials, presentations that you've done, the easier it becomes to complete your e-portfolio.
Isha, thank you for sharing that. And I just want to expand on the, get your artifacts organized. Keep everything. Anytime I talk to a first year, I'm like, keep everything from your classes, homework assignments, essays, lab reports, group projects, presentations you work on, discussion board posts, keep all of it from beyond the classroom. Keep notes that you might take during meetings. If you are in a club and you're advertising an event, keep marketing materials you might create, partnership emails. If you study abroad or have an internship, especially like our internships or prac experiences in the healthcare field and finance field, keep a journal. Because some of those really transformative moments are going to take place in a conversation that you're not going to have any documentation of, or it might be a conversation with a local in a market in Spain, and there's no way to document that. So I just love that pro tip. Keep everything, back it up. It'll make things much easier come senior year.
Also, do not rely on your university email as the place where you are documenting everything, because I no longer have access to my e-portfolio, and it would be very helpful for my job because, apparently the only place that I ever communicate other than Blackboard, which I still can't figure out whether I can access it or not, but the only place that I know that I had that link for sure was in our email, and USC does not really give you access once you graduate like that, like some other schools do. So have a variety of places that you back things up in, and just in general, it's a good habit to keep things. I actually have all of my work from since my sophomore year of high school, and I never knew that habit would be useful until I did GLD, and it was very, very useful.
Another thing I was going to say is a lot of professors lock Blackboard pages where you post like these discussion boards, presentations, essays. A lot of them lock their Blackboard pages at the end of the semester. As soon as you're done with the class, or even like in the middle of the semester, reach out to the professor and just be like, hey, I don't know if there's any way that you could like let me save X, Y, and Z after the semester is over, or gain access to it, just for a second, I need it for my GLD. I can't imagine like any professor would say no. I had to reach out to one professor, and they were super helpful at getting me the presentation that I did. So be aware of that as well.
Thanks, y'all. So we are currently at 7 o'clock, and I just want to thank all of our attendees for spending some time with us, and also thank you to our panelists for so candidly sharing your experiences with us. At this time, we would like our audience members to take a couple minutes and complete a quick survey via the QR code on the screen, and I'm about to share that with you. And then after you complete the survey, you are free to go. As far as our panelists, please stay on for a few minutes and we'll get a group photo.